Something in the walls. The first time Marcus heard the scratching, he blamed the squirrels. He stood in the gutted living room of 1447, Pembroke Lane, surrounded by exposed studs and decades of water damage, and told himself it was just another problem to add to the list. The house had been a steal at auction, foreclosed, abandoned for 3 years, the kind of place that made his contractor friends shake their heads and call him crazy. But Marcus saw profit where others saw problems. He'd flipped 11 houses in 4 years. This would be number 12. The scratching came again. Slower this time. Deliberate. Marcus pressed his ear against the far wall, the one that separated the living room from what used to be a bedroom. The sound stopped. He waited, barely breathing, his cheek against the dusty drywall. Nothing. Just the settling of an old house, he decided. Just the wind in the eaves. He pulled back and noticed something he'd missed during his initial walkthrough, for long scratches gouged into the wall, parallel and deep, as if something with claws had dragged them from ceiling to floor. The marks were behind where a bookshelf had been. He could see the outline in the faded wallpaper. Hidden. Whoever lived here had covered them up. Marcus ran his fingers along the grooves. They were old, the exposed wood dark with age. He'd seen cat scratches before, even dog scratches on door frames. These were different. Deeper. The spacing too wide. His phone buzzed. A text from his girlfriend, Jenna. "How's the murder house?" "Still alive," he smiled and typed back, "Barely. This place is worse than the photos. Need help this weekend?" "Always." Marcus pocketed his phone and returned to work. By the time the sun began to set, he'd torn out most of the damaged drywall in the living room and 2 bedrooms. The house was a skeleton now, exposed and vulnerable. He liked it better this way. Honest. You could see what you were dealing with. As he loaded his tools into his truck, he glanced back at the house. In the growing darkness, the empty windows looked like eye sockets. Someone had lived here once. Raised a family, maybe. Celebrated birthdays and Christmases. Then they'd left in a hurry. The realtor had mentioned finding furniture, clothes in closets, food still in the pantry. Like they'd just vanished. Marcus shook off the thought and drove home. The second time he heard it, he was inside the walls. 3 days into the renovation, Marcus had started rewiring the house. The old knob and tube wiring was a fire hazard, and replacing it meant crawling through the tight spaces between studs. Feeding new cable through the cavities. It was hot, claustrophobic work. Dust filled his nose and mouth despite the respirator. He was threading cable through the wall between the master bedroom and bathroom when he heard breathing, not his own. Something else. Something close. Marcus froze, his arms still extended into the dark space ahead of him. The breathing continued, wet and labored, like someone with fluid in their lungs. It came from deeper in the wall, from the space he couldn't see. "Hello." His voice sounded small and stupid. The breathing stopped. Marcus waited, his heart hammering against his ribs. Slowly, he withdrew his arms and backed out of the wall cavity. He stood in the bedroom, staring at the rectangular opening he'd cut. Just darkness inside. Nothing moved. He grabbed his work light and shined it into the space. The beam revealed wooden studs, electrical cable, and old insulation. Empty. He played the light along the length of the wall, checking every shadow. That's when he saw them, more scratches. Dozens of them. Hundreds, maybe. They covered every surface inside the wall, the studs, the back of the drywall he'd removed, even the floor joists. Frantic, chaotic marks that overlapped and crisscrossed. Some were fresh enough that splinters still clung to the grooves. Fresh enough that sawdust hadn't yet settled into them, fresh enough to be recent. Marcus stumbled backward. His work light slipped from his hand and rolled across the floor, its beam spinning wildly before going dark. In the sudden dimness, he could have sworn he saw something move inside the wall. A shifting of shadows. A suggestion of form, then his phone rang, shattering the silence. He nearly screamed. It was Jenna. "Hey, are you okay? You sound weird." Marcus realized he was breathing hard. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just startled by a rat or something, gross. Want me to bring dinner? I'm off early." He looked at the wall opening. At the darkness inside. "Actually, yeah. That would be great, see you in 30. Marcus left the bedroom and closed the door behind him. He stood in the hallway, trying to rationalize what he'd seen. Animals got into old houses all the time. Raccoons, possums, rats. Maybe something was still living in there, trapped when he'd started sealing up the exterior. He'd set some traps tomorrow. Problem solved, but animals didn't scratch in patterns. And they didn't hold their breath and listen when you called out to them. Jenna arrived with Thai food and immediately picked up on his mood. "You look like you've seen a ghost. This house is getting to me," Marcus admitted. They sat on the front porch, eating pad Thai straight from the containers. "It's just, I don't know. Something feels off." "Off how?" He told her about the scratches, the breathing sound. She listened without interrupting, her expression shifting from amused to concerned. "Marcus, when was the last time you slept?" "I slept fine last night." "No, I mean really slept. Not 4 hours between checking your phone and obsessing about the next project." She set down her food and took his hand. "You're pushing too hard. 12 flips in 4 years. That's insane." "This is different, is it? Or are you just exhausted and working alone in a creepy old house?" She squeezed his hand. "I'm worried about you." Marcus wanted to argue, but she was right. He was tired. Bone tired. The kind of tired that made you see things that weren't there. "Maybe I should take a break." "Yes. Please." Jenna smiled. "Or at least let me help. I'm off this weekend. We can tackle it together." They finished dinner and Jenna left, making him promise to get real sleep. Marcus locked up the house, all the doors, all the windows, and headed home. He lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, trying not to think about the scratches, about the breathing, about the feeling that something in that house had been waiting a very long time for someone to let it out. The third time he heard it, he wasn't alone. Jenna arrived Saturday morning with coffee and a determination to prove there was nothing supernatural about 1447, Pembroke Lane. They worked side by side, tearing out the rest of the damaged materials, bleaching away mold, preparing surfaces for new construction. The house seemed less threatening with 2 people in it. Less alive. They were carrying old boards to the dumpster when Jenna stopped. "Do you hear that?" Marcus's blood went cold. "Hear what?" "Like, tapping. In the walls." They stood in the hallway, listening. The tapping came in groups of 3. Tap tap tap. Pause. Tap tap tap. It moved along the wall, from the master bedroom toward the kitchen, as if something were walking behind the drywall. "It's just pipes," Marcus said, not believing it. Old plumbing settling, the tapping stopped directly beside them. Then, slowly, something scratched at the wall from the inside. One long, deliberate scrape. Jenna's face went pale. "Marcus, what the fuck is that?" He didn't answer. He was staring at the wall, watching as the drywall began to bulge outward. Something was pressing against it from the inside. Something that wanted out. The drywall cracked. Plaster dust drifted to the floor. "We need to leave," Jenna whispered. Right now, they backed toward the front door, not turning around, not taking their eyes off the bulging wall. The scratching grew louder, more frantic. The crack widened. Through the gap, Marcus saw darkness. Movement. And something pale that might have been a hand, or had been a hand, once. They ran, outside, in the bright October sunshine, with neighbors mowing lawns and kids riding bikes. The house looked normal. Harmless. Marcus and Jenna sat in his truck, hands shaking, not speaking. Finally, Jenna said. The people who lived here. The ones who disappeared. Did anyone ever find them? Marcus thought about the scratches behind the bookshelf. The ones that had been covered up. Hidden. He thought about the frantic marks inside the walls, the ones that looked like someone trying desperately to claw their way out. No, he said quietly. They never found them. Jenna stared at the house. They're still in there, aren't they? In the walls. Marcus started the truck. He didn't look back as they drove away. Behind them, 1447, Pembroke Lane stood silent in the afternoon sun. Just another foreclosed property on a quiet street, just another problem that someone else would have to deal with. Inside, in the spaces between the walls, something settled back into the darkness and waited. Patient. Hungry. Ready for the next person foolish enough to tear down the barriers that kept it hidden. The scratching would begin again soon, it always did.
Like and subscribe for more creepy stories and suspenseful horror.